All right, good evening, everyone. I hear the bells tolling, and I know the church can't be wrong, so it's got to be 6 o'clock. So I'd like to officially call this January 23rd meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please do a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Winkland is not present. Councilman Trollinger,
Present.
Councilwoman Bryant Ward,
Present.
Councilman Jenkins,
Present.
Mayor James, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I would ask all of you to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Council, I'd ask that if you haven't had an opportunity to look at the meeting agenda, please do so. And I will take a motion for the agenda, please.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve the January 23rd, 2024 meeting agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. This brings us to the public hearing section of our agenda today. Before officially calling the first public hearing to order, I would like to ask the town clerk to review the procedures for tonight's hearing. Madam Clerk, would you please review the procedures for this evening's public hearing?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. Town of La Plata public hearings are conducted in the following manner: call to order, review of public notices, summary of town staff report and recommendations, questions by the town council to town staff, written documents entered into the record, speakers from the public, additional questions by the town council, closing of public hearing. Written documents for the record submitted in advance of the public hearing are provided to the presiding officer prior to the opening of the public hearing. At the appropriate time, the presiding officer will call registered speakers to the podium. Speakers who have registered to speak in advance via the town webpage will be recognized prior to speakers who register upon arrival at the public hearing. At the discretion of the presiding officer, speakers' comments may be limited to 3 minutes and may not be yielded to another person. A sign-in sheet was provided at the entry of the council chambers for any public hearing attendees to register to speak if they have not already done so in advance via the town webpage. Registration to speak will end when the public hearing is opened.
Thank you very much, Director Phipps. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I would like to officially open this public hearing on the Town Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 191, Article 4 at 6:02 p.m. Madam Clerk, has the notice, or am I directing it to you?
It is to
Okay,
me.
Director Phipps, has the notice of public hearing been properly advertised?
Yes, Madam Mayor. For the record, this public hearing was advertised in the Southern Maryland News Issues published on December 22nd and December 29th, 2023. Copy of the advertisement is attached to the meeting agenda. Notice of this public hearing was also advertised on the town webpage.
Thank you very much. Will the Director of Planning provide recommendations regarding this revision of the town zoning ordinance, please?
Of course. Good evening,
Thank you.
Mayor and Council. For the record, Janine Harrington, Director of Planning for the town. So this is in reference to the residential zoning code amendment that is being recommended by staff for the use number 25 religious assembly in order to give it its own dimensional standards within the table located in chapter 191-28, table 3. Previously, or as existing, a religious assembly was listed as under all other permissible uses, and staff is proposing to pull out religious assembly to give them their own dimensional standards in accordance with what we did with cultural institutions. So this was reviewed by the Planning Commission. They gave a unanimous recommendation of approval. And so we brought this forward to the Town Council at a previous meeting for introduction. And tonight is the public hearing. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have of me.
Thank you very much, Director Harrington. Council, any questions for Director Harrington on this Chapter 191, Article 4? Councilman Jenkins?
Thank you. Thank you, Director Harrington, for bringing us forward. I seem to recall I may have asked this before, but these standards are similar to a cultural institution, and So these are pretty comparable, and this is typically what you see in other communities about religious institutions. I mean, these dimensional requirements are not out of the ordinary or
No.
different per se. So they're pretty consistent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you. Director Phipps, have you received any additional written statements to be included into the record?
No, Madam Mayor, none have been received.
Thank you. We will now proceed to public comment. Do we have a list of those who signed up to speak this evening?
No, Madam Mayor, no one has signed up to speak this
Well,
evening.
that makes it real easy, doesn't it? All right. Additional questions. Last chance, council. Any questions? All right. Director Harrington, do you have anything else to add? I see you scooted out pretty darn fast there. All right. It's pretty, it was pretty clear. She eloquently stated it. So thank you. This concludes the public hearing of the town zoning ordinance, and the council will hear no further comments or questions regarding this. Do I have a consensus from the town council to proceed with legislation on this revision to chapter 191, article 4 of the town code? Councilman Trolinger,
Yes.
Councilwoman Bright Ward,
Yes.
Councilman Jenkins.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So we will see this in just a bit. And this will officially close our public hearing at 6:05 p.m. All right, moving along to the next item on the agenda, council. If you've had the opportunity to look at the minutes of January 16th, I will entertain a motion to accept the January 16th, 2024 minutes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we accept the January 16th, 2024 meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comment? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. This brings us to our section of public comment. I ask that if you wish to speak this evening, that you state your name, whether you live within the incorporated town limits, and if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated. Do I have anyone signed up to speak this evening? Do I have any brave soul out there that wants to speak? They're so good. All right, moving on. Next is our proclamation for the month. I'm going to have Councilwoman Bryant Ward read our proclamation. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas Black history is a book rich with the American experience, but with many pages yet unexplored. And whereas Black History Month affords special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many Black leaders who have contributed to the progress of our nation. And whereas such knowledge can strengthen the insight of all our citizens regarding the issues of human rights, the great strides that have been made in the crusade to eliminate the barriers of equality for minority groups, and the continuing struggle against racial discrimination and poverty. And whereas the 2024 theme of Black History Month, African Americans and the Arts, celebrates the contribution of Black Americans to the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression. And whereas the town of La Plata encourages the preservation of our African American history and applauds the efforts of groups such as the Willing Helpers Society and African American Heritage Society, as well as the La Plata Historic Preservation Commission, to ensure that African American contributions and achievements are recognized for their integral part in the history of La Plata and the surrounding areas. Now, therefore, we, the council of the town of La Plata, proclaim February 2024 Black History Month in the town of La Plata in appreciation of the many achievements of La Plata's African American community and those across the nation and its history, and encourage our community to unite in making this a period of rededication to the principles of justice and equality for all peoples. Signed by the council of the town of La Plata, Mayor Janine James, Councilman David Winkler, Councilman Matthew Trolinger, Councilwoman Evan Bryant Ward, Councilman David Jenkins.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Chief, you're up for your monthly report, please. It's the gentle touch, very gentle.
There we go.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
We've submitted our monthly report. If there are any questions I can answer?
I will open it to the floor. Any questions, Jim?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, looking at the trends across Prince George's and DC, and then seeing some of the activity in Waldorf, our auto theft seems really low. What do you attribute that to?
I don't know. We were talking about that today with command staff. We did do some social media campaigns, and we gave out some of the free steering wheel locks to people who own Kias and Hyundais. I can't tell you if that's what's helped, but fortunately we've eluded the trend thus far. I understand Baltimore set a record. I just blew it out of the water on auto theft. So hopefully we don't see it here.
Do we have any comparative data for Waldorf to compare with what we're doing in La Plata?
We probably could acquire it. That would be just a couple of phone calls, but we don't have it for tonight. We can prepare that for the next time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Jenkins?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, again for the report. Just, I guess, a couple of questions and a couple of observations. Number one, on the slide on page 14, where you do you have a chart or a graphic comparing, I guess, the 5-year comparison. Thanks for that visual. That helps get an understanding of the trends, as well as the chart following that one, the calls for service over 10 years. So that's appreciated. I maybe this is nitpicking on the monthly council report where you talk about the hotels. I'm having a hard time understanding the different colors because they seem to be close together. So I don't know whether that's a big deal or not. And then I guess just an observation. There's a lot of good community work that you do in La Plata, and that's greatly appreciated. By me, and I'm sure the council members, and I know you are very active on social media. And so I was hoping that maybe we could work on doing more press releases or stories or whatever by our public information officer about your department's active community engagement, because I think that's very, very noteworthy and very, very important for a lot of different reasons. So thanks.
We can I can get with Michelle and we can work with the PIO vendor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, I was just curious if you could just give a brief couple sentence summary of what Project Hope is that is being started through Lifestyles and partnered with the La Plata Police Department.
Yeah, sure. So this gentleman, Mr. Kennedy, who lives in La Plata, he's retired from over at the base in Indian Head. He was familiar with a program in Minnesota, very similar to this. I don't think it was called Project Hope, but he was the one who named it. So his goal is for people who are having a really rough time making ends meet to be able to provide some sort of financial assistance to them. It's really designed for a one-time financial assistance. And he wanted the police officer to deliver the check to the person. So we use Lifestyles to vet those. So it's not falling on the government or on the police department. They tell us who they really think are the most needy. They identify it, and then we'll have an officer deliver the funds to the people.
Are you giving contact information for Lifestyles or any other community resources as well?
Yeah, whatever's needed, we would have that with us.
Okay, thanks a lot. That seems like a really generous donation by our resident. Great opportunity for our community. I'm glad that you guys are part of that. So thanks.
Yeah,
for
Mr.
taking
King's a
care of
great guy.
And how can residents who may want to, or winners of a trivia contest might want to donate to Project Hope?
Yeah, if you go to Lifestyles of Maryland's website, there's a drop-down menu on donations, and you just take it down to Project Hope, click on it, and then you could, like any other donation, you would make the Lifestyles.
Wonderful. Thank you. And one question for me, is the 29th still a viable date for the uh,
Speed
speed
photo
photo
enforcement.
enforcement?
Yeah, they let us know yesterday it would probably be February 1st because they lost 2 days because of the weather.
Okay, good. All right, and the other one is still TBD?
Yeah, it is, but there has been some dialogue, so that I find that favorable. It hasn't been negative dialogue, just more information gathering.
Wonderful.
And then
Thank you.
anybody who wants to plunge with us February 2nd, you can come plunge with
Well,
us.
I think that is wonderful. I heard it's supposed to be a balmy, like 32 degrees, so that should be
Yeah,
fine.
it's got to be warmer than last year.
It has to be. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. All right, next up is Director Harrington. Right, any questions for Director Harrington? Go ahead.
Thank you. Director Harrington, thanks again for the report. And I really, again, it's even better than before, particularly with the monthly stats of development and review. Those are really good information. The fact that you're looking at the mapping again, I did have one question, under code enforcement and inspection. There was I guess a company that was stealing water. And so is there any other follow-up action that the town could take against that particular, like, look at their permit or file a complaint on their permit or their permit from the state, or their, they may have some kind of a permit with the state, or can we complain to Better Business Bureau or not? Or is that a legal question we need to pursue?
Councilman, the reality is when people are stealing water, it is a fairly minor amount of, we charge about less than $5 for 1,000 gallons. So our water rate in the charges that we give to people. So even if they've stolen a large tanker truck, for instance, might hold 1,000 to 2,000 gallons. So it is somewhat limiting on what we can do. If we do see them, and we do try and give them a warning, so they are issued a warning right off the bat. What we try to do is get the compliance in the situation so that they're not stealing further amounts. But if we catch them a second time, then we would involve the police.
Okay.
I mean, it's just one of those where the initial time, and what we find most of the time, which is extremely irritating, is that they have the county's water meter hooked to our hydrant. And what's happening is they're paying the county for our water. And so for a lot of these guys, they don't understand. They think, well, I bought a county, Charles County water meter, and it's good for the whole area. And a lot of these, because they send out people who may not even speak English well, a lot of times when we confront them, they really don't speak English. So one of the challenges is they're thinking, well, I have a meter for the whole county, and it just isn't. And so a lot of times we find that the county's being paid for our water, and it is a little bit challenging, and we try to just inform them of compliance. So
Thank you for the education. I appreciate that. Thank you. And then I just wanted to add one quick thing that the Simpson passed her exam. That's terrific news.
She worked very
Passed on. Congratulations. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? I did want to, that's what I had on here, is to publicly recognize Debbie Simpson for her hard work. I know that she was thrilled to have passed that. So yeah, keep up the great work. Thank you. All right, come on down, Director Stahl.
good evening, Mayor and Council.
Opening questions for Director Stahl?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Stahl, I'm just curious. I get a lot of complaints about water bills, of course.
Certainly.
And when you review the water bill, it's the sewer that's the biggest cost on the water bill. Can you explain to me why that is? And then the second question is, how, if we are guesstimating the bills, if we can't actually read it, how do we come up with an amount for the sewer?
Well, two things. One, in the water and sewer bill, the way that we always do water and sewer is whatever you use in water is what you use in sewer. So if you use 15,000 gallons of water, you get charged for 15,000 gallons of sewer. So that's the way that always gets charged. If we generally do not do the estimates in operations, that's generally done by finance, and they do the estimates, and it's always based usually on the previous year's worth of bills, and they estimate it for what they've been doing quarterly. And so they just estimate what the use is. And then we do try very, very diligently to get the actual water meter reading off of the meters if we can. Sometimes it's just because of sheer numbers and trying to get the bills out, it's very difficult to get into people's houses to read the meter.
So is there such a proportionate difference between water and sewer? One, and if we were estimating the prior year, the entire year, why are we still estimating? Are we putting anything on there that lets them know this is an estimate and we need to get in to read your meter?
I believe the answer to that is yes. We do let them know that it is an estimated bill, so I know that's on the bill itself. The big challenge, and I think your most important question, is why sewer is so much more expensive. First, let me say that the costs of the actual water are fairly cheap because we get our water for free. The county gets most of its water for free. And this is the real challenge with appropriation. The water in the state of Maryland, whether it's surface water or whether it's water below the ground, is owned by the state of Maryland. We get a permit from the state of Maryland to appropriate that water out of the ground. They do not charge us for that water. So that water is, for all intents and purposes, free for us to utilize. The challenge with water, and I can tell you right now that when we look at what it costs us to pump that water out of the ground, our costs are 58 cents per 1,000 gallons to appropriate that, to pump the water out of the ground and then use a little bit of sodium hypochlorite for disinfection. So those are our two costs to get it into the line. The remainder of the costs in water are just line repairs, a few tanks, but most of what we have is a capital cost that we've paid for a long time ago. So we're able to keep our water costs fairly low. On the other side of the coin, sewer is very expensive. We're meeting more strict and tighter regulations every single year. And in La Plata, not only do we just have to treat the water to the new ENR standards, but we have to pump it in some cases 5 times just to get that sewer back to our treatment plant. We have 24 pump stations in the town of La Plata that we're constantly maintaining, that we're paying electric costs on, that we're building new infrastructure to try and deal with it. You're currently working right now on about a $5 million wastewater treatment plant upgrade. But the challenge is we work very, very diligently to provide a very clean effluent from our wastewater treatment plant. And it is very expensive to run that plant in a year's time. And so we know every year what our costs are. We factor that in. And we try very, very diligently to stay relatively competitive with the county because we don't want to put our elected officials at a real challenge with their voters. If we get too far out of line with the county in their costs, and it's very difficult for us because the county has such a much larger economy of scale. They're a 10 million gallon a day facility. We're basically a 1 million. So we're 1/10 the size of the county. And so they have some advantages in the economies of scale. we do have to stay reasonably close, because if our water and sewer bills were twice that of the county, you'd be having pressure from your citizens to say, well, why not turn it over to the county? I certainly think that the county would appreciate that. They'd like to see our water and sewer turned over. But one of the things that does to you is it turns the sovereignty of the town of La Plata really over to the county. And so you would no longer control, if you don't control your water and sewer, you're not going to be able to control, you might as well turn over planning and everything else to them. So we're trying all the time to ensure that our costs remain reasonably close to the county, just so that we don't have the kind of political backlash that you could potentially have if we got too far out of line. So I think that's the reasonable explanation without getting too in depth on that. It's very expensive to try and process sewer. And we're roughly about 1 to 3 in our costs. So we're about 3 times higher for sewer than what we're charging for water. And that's pretty common in the sewer industry right now.
Thank you. I wouldn't be concerned about political backlash if it made sense. You know, we can't run a town at the expense of the town.
Oh, absolutely. No, and we're required, you know, we run it as an enterprise fund. And so we have to pass those costs along. We are careful though in the situation, because really, if you get too far out of line on price, just like if you're running a retail business, if your prices are too high, the public's going to go somewhere else. And we have to be careful of that. Just because we're a governmental entity, you know, that still doesn't allay the political fears of our residents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Director Stahl?
I'd just like to say that the weather has played havoc. You see a lot of the guys. I really appreciate the work that the guys have been doing in some pretty tough weather conditions. And it has been, you know, we run a bacteriological sewer treatment plant. And when the weather gets as cold as what it's been, it has been very challenging for us with regard to providing good, clean effluent. So we've really been fighting some weather issues. Really appreciate that.
And I just want to say on a personal note, thank you to Eddie, Nate, and Austin for my water meter wasn't reading properly, and it took a couple. Maybe Eddie was the key in this one to try to make this one work. We'll see, Eddie. But thank you. They so kind and so so efficient on that. Even Eddie.
Even
So-
Eddie.
But thank you guys. But thank you for your hard work on
Thank
that. All right. Next up will be our own treasurer, Treasurer Larson. Come on down. Any questions on the finance monthly report? Go ahead.
Thank you.
Jenkins.
Thank you. I appreciate the reports again. So we're still about a month behind in terms of actual data.
Well, the reason I do it a month behind is because I need to make sure we get the information in. Bear in mind, we get an invoice in.
Mhm.
Then the invoice has to go to the department. So the department's got to verify we received or the job was completed. They have to make sure what they go through the process, sign it off. Then it comes back to us. And then we have the AP clerk entering in. And some invoices get delayed and we might not receive it or could have gotten lost. And what I'm trying to do is make it so that the information you get for that month of FY23 is comparable to what's been entered in the previous year, FY23 compared to FY24 for that month, that period of time. And if I do it, say just 3 weeks into the month, you could be missing a portion of that. That's why I have it a month behind to try to get as much data in and get that number as accurate as I can. So you can do a comparison from the previous period of the previous fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a pie chart on page 64 of 109. It's a pie chart of general fund, year to date fund of percentage of expenditures by category, which is helpful. But I'm confused, which is not too easy. So what's the difference between this chart and the one on page 67 of 109?
I don't have the same page numbers as
Okay.
you, so.
Well, I'm trying to find it myself. But then there's there's a spreadsheet called General Fund Expenditures, and it has different total expenditures, or is this referring to enterprise fund?
This refers to the pie chart. This is just giving you the actual numbers. The charts are kind of give you an idea of looking at the, as a whole, how much is going to salary and wages,
Yeah.
how much is going,
Yeah.
and this gives you the actual numbers.
Okay, because I just didn't understand. On the pie chart, it says 32.9% of FY '24, but the table says 22%, 22.96%. So I'm not
Well,
under,
that's the total. So that 2296 is the overall, all the expenses as a
Okay.
group. And then I got the individual categories as a percentage
okay.
difference of each individual
All right.
category.
Now I understand. All right. So that just says that we're in pretty good shape so far in
I
the
mean,
current budget year.
Yeah.
Overall, I mean,
As far as the budget, we're pretty much where we should be. This actual one is the variance between the previous year.
okay.
So you can see that we're 22.96% higher in expenses than we were last fiscal year at this time.
Okay. And that's probably the same question I had later on. So you've answered that one too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next, Director Kennedy. Oh, Director Phipps, sorry.
Again?
You know what? I know, again, that was such an
Oh.
over, I apologize. Because I looked, it was so thorough that I didn't even think you needed to be up there. So
Thank you, ma'am.
Director Phipps, any questions for Director Phipps?
I do, again. Thank you, Director Phipps, again, for the thorough report. Again, I asked the question on the chart about the request for information for the USDA. There's two of them. Are they one and the same or different? I'm still confused by those.
There actually were 4 batches for that,
Oh, 4
that
batches.
request altogether. There were 5,000, almost 6,000 responsive records that needed to be gone through. USDA did the initial screening of those,
Mhm.
sent them to us in 4 different batches. The town attorney looked at each batch separately and then decided if anything needed to be redacted. And in the end, I don't believe anything was. There, it was,
mainly planned, engineered drawings,
Okay,
things of that nature
sure.
in the fourth batch.
So have they been completed or still a work in progress?
oh no, sir, they're completed. All 4 are
So
completed.
they've been out to the person, the organization, the person who requested it. They have it now.
I don't know if they have it now. The USDA had indicated that they were planning to release it to that applicant.
Oh, okay. And then I asked this question before. Who pays for this? Of these, who pays for this particular request?
Because it went through USDA,
Mm-hmm.
anything paid would have gone to them from the
I mean,
applicant.
what did it cost us and who pays for that cost?
Well, we paid for the town attorney's time to review the records.
Okay.
Other than that, it was a pass-through.
So that's not reimbursable. I mean, that we can't get reimbursed for the people for USDA or somebody else who requested it then.
Not to my knowledge. I don't
Okay.
believe so for a Freedom of Information Act.
So we're going to know what that cost is at some point in time.
It'll be the hours spent by the town attorney reviewing the records.
And we'll get that cost sometime, I guess.
Town attorney's billing would include it.
But we'll be able to see that, just that specific line item, if somebody requests it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions? I do. See, that's why you needed to be up there. Any update on December 11th, you did the pre-bid walkthrough for the firehouse museum renovations. Any update on that?
Well, like any construction project, Madam Mayor, what seemed very straightforward turned out to be very complicated. And so now we have some ADA compliance issues that we need to address. But we are working with a local architect to address those and issue a new revised bid. That said, just because it's a challenge doesn't mean we're not going to keep at it. We do feel strongly about reactivating the firehouse and making it an active part in our community.
Oh, I think that would be wonderful. And it might go along with a tourism bill and bring in tourists to go through that museum.
Tourist arts, we're really hoping to turn it into a multipurpose kind of flex venue space.
And the other thing is, I noticed we still only have 13, maybe 13 and a half applications for the, license plate. Can anybody, not just residents of La Plata, get that? Like,
Anybody in Maryland, as long as the application comes through town hall for approval. And let me say that with your application, Madam Mayor, we are at 17.
17. So if I just look out in the audience, I mean, there are many people here that.
I
might-
am absolutely positive at least 8 of them would like to pick up an application in the lobby on the way out the door.
And La Plata proud. I
Yes,
think that's what it
absolutely.
is. Just putting it out there, guys. All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, now Director Kennedy. So sorry, Director Phipps. I did that again. All right, any questions for Director Kennedy? Oh my goodness, you are the winner today. Thank you so much for that.
That's only because I have to stay
uh,
up here, Madam Mayor.
Easy peasy.
Mhm.
That was good. All right, nothing. All right, thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda is the town pension plan. Director Kennedy and Director Larson, come on up. All right, so do you need to say anything before I go into my, all right. Before I open the floor for questions or comments from council, I would like to take this opportunity. Normally I don't, but I am very passionate about this today. In December, the council was presented with proposed pension and retirement plans for qualified police and public works personnel. The council, having been granted 4 weeks for evaluation, discussion of benefits and costs with staff, is now urged tonight to select a plan for incorporation into the proposed FY25 budget. It is critical that the chosen plan, once approved, remain a fixture in our future budgets based on its requirements. Throughout this process, council has been encouraged to submit questions, concerns, whatever, channeling up, going to our town manager, who would bring it to the appropriate person. I submitted questions December 8th and January 4th and have yet to receive a response. And tonight you're asking us to make a decision without supporting financial information. It raises concerns about the basis for an informed decision. I was informed that financial assessments will be conducted only after a decision is made, which I find to be potentially misleading and direct and may have an impact which would cause us pause to the budget. It's akin, so I kind of think of it as this. I put it in very simple terms. If my husband came home and said, pick a car, and I said, I want a Ferrari, and I'm all excited about that, and he said, cool, we'll look into that. And I'm really planning my life for a Ferrari, and he comes back and he says, we can't afford that. Pick another one. All right, I'll pick a Cadillac. He does his research and we can't afford that. So why are we engaging in this back and forth when we don't know? And we're giving people false hope to say that we're looking at this pension plan and we can't afford it. So, there are other options. Currently, all of our employees are enrolled in the state pension plan, and the town also provides a 457 plan that is significantly underutilized, with less than half of our employees enrolled in this. So for me, it weighs very heavy on me because I am not opposed to offering enhanced benefits, but I have to also know what I'm getting into and how it's going to balance the budget or not balance the budget, what is going to be cut. So for those reasons, I will abstain from choosing a plan tonight and until I receive financial information that will help me make an informed decision. So with that, I will open it up to council for their comments or questions. Thank you for allowing me to have this time. Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the last time we were asked to hold off on making a decision until the county had given us their estimates for increases or whatever. Did you receive that information?
I have.
And when I spoke with you, my preference is for the overlay plan. I'm clear on that. And I asked to show me what it looked like. When we had the meeting with Mr. Bolton, we stated that the numbers you gave us in the examples were not accurate. And we couldn't make a decision based upon that. When I came back and said, well, I would like to see what it would look like with the overlay plan. You said, well, you have those numbers are as close as I can get.
Yes, so those numbers, so these amounts that I provided, I pulled from the current salaries for all positions budgeted in FY '24. I then put in the estimated COLA that would be in FY '25. I used those numbers based on the percentage that was provided from Bolton to show the cost of each year with an assuming a COLA going in. This does not include a merit or anything like that because that's not the information I have available. So what you have here is what the current cost for your budgeted positions at the rate with an assumption of a COLA in FY '25 and the average COLA over the next 5 years.
So I'm not being mean, and I hope you don't take it that way. I'm a little confused because at that meeting, when this was presented, we were told that we couldn't make a decision on those numbers. Those numbers, because those numbers weren't accurate, we had to pick something else in order to get a better representation of what it would cost us. That's what we were told on that night.
I don't recall that because I took the information. So the percentages, that's based on Bolton's research, their analysis. So if their analysis has some of their, I guess, assumed numbers are wrong, it could affect those percentages. I use those percentages based on the current information we have. So even if there's something, maybe we might be a few $1,000s off, I'm not sure. But all I can say is these numbers are based on our current budgeted positions with a COLA for FY '25 and estimated based on the average increases over a 5-year period.
Okay, and so my last question, last comment. What we have in the overlay plan allows for early retirement for those officers and public work personnel that are in high-risk positions. That overlay will address that major concern.
Yes, but bear in mind, you've got 3 plans that overlay. There's 3 different plans that can be a supplement plan to the retirement.
Right, but there was one overlay plan where we would have someone to administer the overlay portion and we would keep the state. Then you were talking about the LEOPS. I'm not
No.
talking about that.
We're talking about the supplement plan to the Maryland State Retirement. There are 3 different plans for that. There's Plan 1, which is basically mimicking the Maryland State Retirement with an early retirement age. There's Plan 2 that is increasing the benefit from the Maryland State Retirement and an early retirement age. And then the Plan 3 that Bolton came up with based on what's standard amongst the industry.
All right, any other questions?
Yes, I'm not sure about, I guess I would ask, Madam Mayor had some prepared response for this evening, and she says that she had some questions that went unanswered. Is there a reason why we couldn't answer these questions? Because I understand that, they're kind of in charge of the agenda, and I know that previously we were
I
asked
can speak to that. And
to wait.
the main reason was we were asking you to choose a plan, and then finance is going to build financial scenarios from that plan to bring back to council. We're not making we are
We're not enacting.
preferring an Uber plan tonight, but at the same time, we have to sort of evaluate those numbers as part of the FY25 budget process to show you what the impacts will be. So we weren't asking you to figure out how you're going to pay for it. That's our job. We're asking you to select the plan that you like. And for the mayor's analogy, it's sort of, we aren't asking you for between a Ferrari and we're asking you whether you want the sedan, the minivan, the SUV, or the station wagon, for example. So we're asking you to select the plan that you thought was optimal for the employees. And then from that, we can sort of, and, we may get into the budget process and go, this is a problem. We hope not. But at the same time, we're looking for the plan that you
Right.
are most comfortable with moving forward.
So to clarify, and I think, and I've heard the mayor's concerns throughout, and I don't think they're lost on council or any resident or town staff.
No.
We could pick a plan for analysis, and then at the end of that result, unfortunately, find that it's completely not feasible.
That's correct, Councilman. And Karina and I have talked about this. We have other options. So if this doesn't work and this maybe doesn't make fiscal sense for the town, we have other options that we can do in general for everybody. So we can still try to give some kind of retirement, something, even if it's not exactly what we originally wanted. We still have other things on the table that we might be able to work with.
And I appreciate that clarification because I think I do understand and agree with the mayor's concern that we don't want to, jump in without
Mhm.
having any knowledge of what the things would cost. But it's not, the urging of us to choose a plan is the urging of us.
It's a jumping off point.
Okay. And I wanted to be clear as to who's urging us to choose I guess was the question.
I think the timing, because we are getting ready to enter the budget process. So for us to take it into consideration as part of FY25's budget process, that's why, we were waiting for the numbers from Bolton once we received them. And now we feel like the information is in and we just, need council to make a decision on which plan they prefer, which will then start in Karina's hands, the evaluation process to get to sort of the questions the mayor was asking, this is the number, how do we pay for it?
And the consequence of not doing so does not allow us to have it in FY25
Right. Then
at the consideration.
you're probably kicking it out because it wouldn't be part of the budget. Excuse me. And something, this substantial needs to be taken into consideration. Because we're basing our revenues, we run a balanced budget. It's not ideal to leave depending on what the plan is, $250,000 to $500,000 hole in our budget. We need to account for those revenues on the expense side of the budget. So yeah, that's some of the challenges and why we're hopeful to get a decision so that we can start that evaluation.
Okay. Question is a piggyback to Councilwoman Bryant Ward's questions about the overlay plan. Essentially, out of the ones that were presented to us, there were basically 5 different options, and the 5th option had basically 3 parts to it. Is that fair? We had plan 1, plan 2, and a
Yeah,
plan
you had
3.
a defined contribution plan, you had LEOPS, and you had an overlay plan or in supplement to the Maryland State Retirement, and then you had establishing a whole new plan.
And as I understand it, town staff has not, at least you guys don't have any recommendations as to the particular plans.
There's pros and cons to all of them. I mean, I think we can work with any of the ones that we choose, and for the most part, there's flexibilities in all of them for us to find, to try to make the best solution for the town. So it's just what do we want to prioritize as far as, do we want to pick the plan that you guys feel we want to emphasize more on the early retirement, or do we want to emphasize a plan that's maybe a different kind of vesting, or is it, fiscally, cheapest? What, it's just which one.
Understood.
Yeah.
And if I'm looking at the presentation that was given December 19th, as far as the supplemental benefits plan, out of the three that were given there, one was a mirror plan with just an earlier start. The second plan was an improved plan with an early start, but the improved plan with the early start was actually an earlier start. Is that fair? It said 50 and 10 years?
Yes, it's basically, it was an increase in benefits and an earlier retirement age, second plan.
And neither of those precluded the inclusion of public works. It's
Yes,
just as defined, because the third was, Plan 3 was police. It's listed as police only.
yes. So Plan 3, there's one for police and one for public works. So this is the one that Bolton put together based on their recommendation, based on the industry standard. The other two plans were suggested by staff based on the request for an early retirement and staying within the Maryland State Retirement Plan.
Okay, so Plan 1 and Plan 2 of the supplemental have essentially no distinction between types of employment with the town.
Correct. It would be, the same benefit would be for both public works and PD.
Okay, understood. And I may have another question later based on any other feedback, but I appreciate you guys trying to hold us accountable to make decisions for the next couple of years and trying to figure out what we have and what we can do.
And that is probably the most important thing. What you choose now is a long-term decision. It's not just for this year or next year. And even though, I mean, you probably heard assessment's gone up, you don't know what's going to happen in 3 years.
Mhm.
I was just looking at 2008 and 2009, and for 6 years, our assessment revenue was less than 2% increase. So it's concerning to make sure we make the right decision and make sure we make the decisions that we need to make to fund this for indefinitely if you choose a pension plan.
Which is part of our process. That's not just now, but that's later. And then as I read it with Plan 3, under the subsection, this is of course as it relates to the overlay plan. With Plan 3, it has the public works section. Does that change any of their benefits for the worse as compared to what they have now?
Well, it definitely improves their benefits compared to what they have now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilman. Okay. Councilwoman Brian Warren, go. I didn't know if you had anything.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So let me just say this. You gave us the information. You came before us. We, the council, asked for additional information. You went out and got that information. On December 19th, we had an in-depth discussion. We asked questions, and we were to walk away and make a decision. At that time, with the information that we had, we asked out of plans, the overlay plan 1, 2, and 3, which was the better plan, which you thought was the better plan. And I'm old, if I remember correctly, plan 3 of the overlay plan was the better option. It could be administered. It was not going to cost us an arm and a leg like we initially assumed to have someone else overlay, do the overlay piece, because they're not administering it every day. I had a meeting today with a psychologist, and one of the things she said to me was she has a lot of police officers. In Public Works, I am not excluding you. This was a conversation she brought forward. She had a lot of police officers that had surgeries, had been in accidents, had multiple injuries, and they could not retire. But when we talk about we don't know what the revenue is going to look like, it's on us that we haven't increased taxes. And I understand that we have the fund and we couldn't justify it, but our town was growing and it's still growing. And with that growth, it's going to come different people, different elements, and we are going to need a good, strong public works department that won't feel like, and you see how they work all night. long days. We have police officers doing the same. We need people that are going to be able to support our operations in our town. We cannot afford to have people, working tirelessly with that type of impact on their bodies and not have an option. We're not going to get them. I hear it all the time. They cannot recruit. And the thing that they name the most, and it's not conversation with our police department, because I've had the conversations outside, because, when our police department presents their side, you're thinking, okay, is this all of it? So you want to hear other departments, and it's all over. So we've got to come up with something. And I'm talking to my council members, we got the information. And we were asked to wait until we found out what the county was going to do. But that did not preclude us from reviewing the information that we had and making a decision to come forward with a recommendation, because we would have had the conversation earlier. So to now ask the same questions that we've asked and been answered and not be able to make a decision, I think it's unfair. And we're not operations. We don't have to figure it out. We just have to give them what they need to be able to plug and play and see how it lands. The additional revenue from the county was a part of the revenue piece. Now we have to give them the expense piece, the liability piece, and that's the pension plan in our recommendation. And I think it would be really, really bad if we could not do that tonight after having that information since December 19th.
Councilman Jenkins?
I'm still a little bit confused. The additional information that we had to wait to get, was that from the state revenue or county? I'm confused.
I'm not sure. Reason why, I'm guessing it was because we didn't have the assessments.
From the state.
As of that time, I have the assessments.
But that's state assessment.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the state did it
Trickles
for
through
the
the
county.
county, right?
Yeah.
So how do those numbers affect these plans, or you were looking, so we would, what kind of revenues we're expecting for the next year's budget is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. These are based on the assessments, which would be for 3 years.
Right.
Again, I will be honest, I don't understand what that bearing is, because this is not a one-time decision. This is
Mhm.
a decision you're making that is going to be a continuous operating
Mhm.
decision. So if these assessments drop in 3 years, as long as you guys make.
I'm just trying to get clarification by the term
Yeah.
county versus state. I have that now.
Um,
The other question I have, there was an option for a standalone plan, right?
Yes, there is.
And so what are the pros and cons of that?
Well, first, they would come out of the Maryland State Retirement.
Right,
And
okay,
from my understanding, that means everybody would have to come out of this Maryland State Retirement.
okay.
And I can, based on conversations with employees that are not going to get this additional benefit, they do not want to leave the state retirement plan. But there is
Okay.
that option. That's the last one listed on
Right.
the page.
Right.
And that which lists the costs, but that's the additional cost above and beyond what we were paying right now for the Maryland State Retirement.
So then what Councilman Trollinger talked about earlier, this option 3, or overlay, I guess. So is that then administered by you or the town or some outside administrator,
It would be
right?
an outside administrator.
And so you would provide some estimated cost of what that would be and it's an annual basis or whatever?
15,000 a year
It was
Okay.
50,000.
is the estimated cost to.
And did that include legal advice too, or did that come from,
I am not sure. That was the estimate that I got from Bolton on
Okay.
administrating the plan.
all right,
So we postponed our decision from last time because we didn't have the county numbers, right? We have the county numbers, but we have seen nothing from that would impact, at least I'm going to speak for myself, that would impact my decision one way or another. And that's why we delayed it for another week. And to me, and I will reiterate, and I totally appreciate what Councilwoman Bryant Ward said, until I see some types of numbers, they can be based on assessments, and I hear what you're saying. I know exactly. As a as a town, we just got an increase in our assessments, and so we will, what, $1 million more, maybe? That is not sustainable. That will not happen every single year, and so we have to think from now until eternity how we are going to pay for this. So I appreciate that. I'm going to, if there's, do you have another question?
Yes.
Councilman
Yeah,
Trolinger?
yeah. So, you stated that the assessments aren't really,
Well, I don't know why it was postponed because of this,
Okay,
because
but we
this
have them.
decision you're making
sure.
is a long-term, it's not
Right.
like we're doing a one-time expense for FY 25
Right,
or
right.
FY 20. It's a long-term expense.
Right.
And those assessment dollars are gonna cover multiple different projects and different activities we have in the town. So even if it's an extra $1 million, that whole million is not going towards the retirement plan. It's going towards benefits. It's going towards,
COLA, merit, if you guys want to do a
Payroll.
merit, yeah.
I guess I'm a little, I kind of understand what you're saying, Madam Mayor. And I don't want to address other, us as council to each other, but I'm not sure if the request is we want to see the assessment numbers and wait another week, or what the request is, or if it's an indefinite, we don't know how the assessments are going to play out, so we just can't ever decide. I guess that's where I'm confused, because you're asking us to make a decision now for FY 25. Is the deadline now for FY 25 essentially because of where we are?
What I'm really trying to find out, which plan are you guys wanting to go with so I can
know
incorporate
that.
it into the budget?
I know that. I'm asking about timeline because we have a request from our mayor to see the assessments. You've told us the assessments are helpful, but not necessarily indicative of of what you're requesting.
Yes, that is.
I'm asking about timeline because I'm not sure if this is a request for an indefinite, let's wait until whenever, or if it's for another week. Is another week gonna matter?
It's not going to matter. This is your decision. This is something that the council asked, and I just need to know which one you want to pick so I can put it in the budget. But I'm just saying, whatever you pick, just bear in mind, there might be some hard decisions 3 years from now. It's not my choice. I just want to
I'm
know
not,
which one you want to go with so I can provide that in the budget for you.
or it could be a hard decision in a month when we finalize the budget if we decide that we can't afford it. We just need to start somewhere.
completely get that. But your data will not change for us as to this request.
Not what I provided you. Now, if you go and add new positions into the FY 25 budget, maybe you add a couple public works, a couple PD, that's going to change this number.
Okay. 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 That's the little questions I have.
All right, any other?
I would, I guess, follow on from Councilman Trollinger's comment. It was my understanding that we made a request, or there was a request to delay any discussion because we wanted the county funds. Now we're being told, well, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, I'm just kind of confused by that. And I understand because I used to work in government. I get it. Okay. There will always be changes year to year in a fiscal budget. I get that. And to be very frank about it, whether we have to raise taxes or not, I don't know. We don't know yet. But unfortunately, it seems to me we haven't raised taxes here in 21 years, right? Which is a good thing. So they either says we are damn good and efficient, which we probably are pretty efficient. But I think there was a other comment about how the town has grown. We're over 10,000, and I suggest we're probably way over that now, given the amount of development we've had and can expect over a number of years. So from my own perspective, it kind of says, well, wait a minute. So we haven't raised taxes for 21 years. And so I guess we're doing okay. But to me, that suggests, well, maybe we could have done some other investments. Having said that, you're right. We don't want to raise taxes just because we can raise them because we can. We have to somehow be prudent with our taxpayers' dollars, and we have to justify any tax increase. And I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just saying that we should not necessarily, at least for me, we shouldn't necessarily be afraid to have an open discussion about that. If it happens, or we have to do that, then we have to obviously be justified and we have a good return on our investment. And I know we don't want to continue to delay, but again, I wish prior to this, and I suggested this, that perhaps we could have a separate discussion meeting to talk about this rather than jamming into an agenda. We're almost being told, well, let's do this now. Because the budget, and I know we're going to talk about the budget. So we have a number of months between the budget really takes place. I know you have a timeline to approve it. I get all that too. But right now, I'm just extremely uncomfortable. But Councilman Trollender did clarify, at least for me, that we're not making a final decision. We're just trying to figure out if you pick A, what does it cost us? So then that, to me, asks the question, well, then why can't we evaluate all of them, see what it costs? And then do a fair, equitable,
If-
objective comparison?
if
Or
you
is that
would-
too much work?
Well, if you would like, I will put in a percentage, an average percentage based on these plans to see where we're at in the budget. I mean, it's a benefit. So I can put it in there and let you know how it affects our revenue stream for FY 25. If that would be more helpful, I can just start the budget process and assume that you will be implementing the plan at a minimum amount or percentage.
Well, we have our budget retreat next week.
Right.
And to me, that's where this belongs because we can look at solid numbers. I'm not apologetic for being somebody that has to look at numbers. I am not a concept type of person. I don't like to, as I said, give false hope to anybody. And I've done a lot of researching on this and I do not feel comfortable without seeing numbers. That's who I am. So.
If you would like, I will put an estimate in the budget of the personnel costs. And then for each type of plan and what the cost will be for each type of plan with the current personnel.
Councilman Trollinger, what is your thought?
I have a question to Mr. Manuel about this. So we have our meeting right now tonight you all have asked us to decide this. I asked about data changing. It's not really changing of data. It's more of a different way of showing us data. I asked about whether or not that would affect our budget timeline if it was a week later, but it wouldn't necessarily be a week later because we wouldn't be doing this at our budget meeting. We'd just be discussing it, correct? So it'd be a 2-week, at least, pushback.
Yeah, at least, just trying to play out the scenario. Obviously, if we do not have a decision tonight, we move forward still with our budget process. Instead of building 5 scenarios from one plan, it's going to be a little more lifting for, I think as far as developing the budget, sort of evaluating all the potential options, something that can be done. But, because we will have the budget kickoff. I'm just trying to think of our budget timeline. We have the kickoff basically next Tuesday, and then departments get to work on their sort of worksheets. And then, in the meantime, in the background, Karina's working to sort of forecast revenues, things of that sort. So that would be the time when she's building, because we don't come to council again with budget until, is it March? April. So we do have a bit of a lag as staff internally works through the budget process. So,
All right. So,
but we could always plug in, a discussion.
It's not hard for me to plug in a percentage, but it's going to be a lot of information to you getting each one of these with each of the different percentages. I think the real big question is, what plan do you want to provide the employees? Because if you look at these plans, other than the one leaving the Maryland State Retirement, you have Plan 3 and Plan 1 is very close to the percentage. Plan 2 is almost twice as much. And so I can give you an idea of what Plan 1 and 3 would look like on the expense side based on our current personnel. And I can give you what looks like Plan 2. I can also give you scenarios with a contribution plan, doing a 2, 3, 4, 5%, whatever you guys want to do. But it's more of what plan do you want to provide the employees? And I can let you know what it looks like in the budget.
Right.
But go ahead.
I just, like, like prior council, when I sat in on their meetings before we had our election, their biggest regret was not addressing this issue. And they all agreed that they should have addressed it. And some of us were here during that time and some of us weren't. Here we are again. And I, you know, we have a councilman that's not here. I understand that. We have, Madam Mayor has some concerns. I understand that. But whatever you guys are suggesting, I think you're loud and clear. We need to give you some direction. And I cannot agree to a situation or a scenario where it goes into the following fiscal year. And Mr. Manuel, you haven't suggested that discussing this at our budget meeting would do that. But I just want to be clear that if we're given these numbers as percentages of our current budget, that we're not kicking this like it's been kicked for the last decade or however many years plus.
Yeah, 5 years at least since I've been here. It comes up annually. Yeah, I think we still have time, obviously, because they are numbers. Ideally, we'd love a decision tonight. It doesn't sound like we're leaning that direction, but at the same time, as long as we do have a decision, we can put it back on the agenda in February, because like I say, we're not going to have discussions with council till April. But it's not the only expense that we have within our budget that we're going to have to account for. As Karina pointed out, we could have additional employees, which are going to increase the number. There's all sorts of variables and scenarios that need to be evaluated as part of this process. And, as she stated, this isn't a one-off. This is something that's going to continue year over year. So, I think we will obviously make it work.
So, Councilman Jenkins, I think you were
Yeah,
following up.
if it's, I don't disagree with all that. To me, it would be helpful to have those percentages. And why not talk about it on the 30th? I mean, just have all of them up there and say A, B, C, whatever they are. And we have the numbers we have some numbers in front of us, at least in front of me, that says, okay, what do we balance that cost to what the employees want?
Well,
Because I don't have that sense right
These are
now.
going to be estimates because.
I understand
All
that.
right,
And
because I-
please, can I ask a favor? Don't assume that we have too much information. Okay, more information for me helps. Okay. Yeah, so please give us the information, at least for me, give me the information, because I like to be able to look at it and be prepared to make an informed decision. So for me, it would be helpful to have percentages or estimates. I get that. And it would be wonderful if we could talk about it beginning on the 30th.
All right. You have another.
I do. We have got to stop saying that we would be increasing taxes to cover our benefits. That is the wrong statement. We have not increased taxes to cover the cost of operations for our town. We bore that burden for all those years. And even if we don't pass a retirement plan, our operational costs are going to go up. Is the town going to continue to cover the cost for the town at the expense of the town for the residents? When the rooftops go up, we should have considered increasing taxes. We didn't, but we need to now. Our operations are going to continue and our employees need to be cared for. To think that employees can retire and not have medical, that's sad to me. You know, if you're depending on Medicare, they keep saying we don't know if Medicare is going to be around. So we've got to think about the folk that have been here for all these years and supported us to make sure that we can get good quality staffing, keep them, and when they retire, they feel honored that they served here. So it's not, but the taxes has nothing to do with us increasing benefits. That is not the answer, and we need to stop putting that out there. That's not it. It's operational costs for our town as it grows. Things are going to get more expensive on the town, and that's what we have to consider. That's it for me, Mayor.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
All right, so I'm going to ask council, what is your decision? What would you like to do this evening? What is going to suit you?
Yeah, so I think the call to question was, what plan do you want us to investigate, if any, as a result of the data that you've given us? And I'd like for you to investigate and proceed with an overlay plan. That's my vote to go forward with that and determine whether or not that's feasible for our town. I think it's a benefit to our public works department. It's a benefit to our public safety employees. And I don't really understand what's going on with trying to pushing it out or planned. I'll just leave it at that. I think,
overlay plan?
are you requesting which of the three? Or are you, because I didn't hear that from you.
If you
guide us
can.
that much, that'd be.
I'll ask you to look at Plan 2 and Plan 3.
All right, Councilwoman Bryant Moore.
I do not want to delay this. I'm asking that you review the overlay plan, option 3.
Councilman Jenkins.
I was hesitant about those overlay plans, but hearing additional discussion, particularly the idea that there's some, and now I understand better the resistance to leave the state plan, perhaps look at overlay 3, but also just look at also that separate plan as well.
So you have a majority of the direction is overlay Plan 3. I've already stated the way I feel, so that is on the record as well. You guys have done amazing work. Thank you so much. It is such a big decision, I know, and you have direction now. I will still look for numbers, and that's where we're going for. So,
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
all right.
As-
That, oh,
As it relates to the vote, is it cost prohibitive to include Plan 2 as part of the analysis?
I can do plan 2.
Okay.
I can.
it's supposed to be majority. You can't like it's.
Well, I think that's
Easier us
for me.
to come up with two
Yeah.
comparisons than to try to do all 5 and present that.
Actually, that's pretty good because if you look at plan 2, it's almost twice
Right.
the cost of plan 3.
So that'll give you a very good, difference.
All right,
Yes.
That's
so
easier for you.
I amend, if it is the will of the council on this side, to allow those guys to explore 2 as well. Are you okay with that? Both of you?
I'm okay with that. That's fine.
And I still stay the
The-
same. So
the-
there we go.
I don't know if I should really mention this.
No, Mike is off.
You're
There we go. All right, thank you very much. That brings us to legislation, ordinance 24-02, the second reading for consideration of adoption.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Town Council, an ordinance concerning amendment to the Town of La Plata fiscal year 2023 financial plan budget for the purpose of amending the Town of La Plata fiscal year 2023 FY23 financial plan budget and all matters generally relating thereto.
All right, do I have a motion to accept ordinance 24-02 as presented?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we accept ordinance 24-02, amendment for the town of La Plata fiscal year 2023 financial plan budget as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And the first reading on ordinance 24-01, chapter 191.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Town Council, an ordinance concerning Chapter 191 zoning ordinance for the town of La Plata, Maryland, for the purpose of amending the zoning ordinance to define development standards for the religious assembly use type and all matters generally relating thereto.
All right, thank you. I'm sure we'll see that again at our next meeting. All right, bringing us to new business, commission reports. Councilman Trolinger.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Beautification Commission met yesterday morning at 9:00 a.m. We got some great updates on the train station situation, which you've already heard from Director Phipps. We do still have an opening on the commission, so if anyone knows of anyone that is passionate about the beautification of our town, either in arts or our relationship with Bird City USA or BC USA, we'd be happy to interview them as being a part of our team. We're in the process of doing a renewal of our standing with Bird City USA. There's Ms. Wheeler working on that. We also have been going through a sustainability map to essentially work through I wouldn't say interactive Google Map situation, but it's going to include heritage sites as well as pollinator sites for our bees and some other areas where Bird City can be appreciated and respected and enjoyed. We're also coming up with a sustainability program by means of a report card for a variety of categories. It can be residential, commercial, or essentially cultural. And so we're going to have a scorecard that's put together to allow for partners in our community and the town that are willing to join us in becoming a more sustainable community. So that's being worked out. Our next meeting is February 26th, 2024 at 9:00 a.m. And, we're welcoming anybody that wants to join us there or be a part of our commission. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
No.
Councilman Jenkins.
I have no report, but could I just make an observation and thank Councilman Trolinger? That report card idea for sustainability is a terrific idea. Thank you.
All right. And, couple things. We had last week, I was able to testify in favor of Senate Bill 14, which is tourism zone. I sat on a panel with the Secretary of Commerce, Anderson, with State Senator Jackson, the president of MML, and the CEO of MML, and it was in the budget committee, and it was very favorable. They seem to have liked the report. It did get picked up on the news, so that was a nice plug for La Plata. We've got, on February 12th, we will be having the president of Maryland Municipal League down here, along with the CEO of MML and several other people coming down to tour Southern Maryland. So we'll make sure that we give them a warm welcome with that. And then next week, we normally don't meet on the 5th Tuesday of the month, but it is budget season. So we will be meeting next Tuesday to discuss that budget. It will be productive, no doubt. And just please follow us to make sure you see all of the upcoming events that are in the works. And the next one is the Plunge. One of the community events is the Plunge coming up, and there is Night to Shine, and there are so many other things coming up in the community. All right, with that,
I have a quick question. Visit by MML.
Yes.
So there'll be So will we be provided dates or places where they're going to be in La Plata?
Yes, they are still, they have not solidified
Okay.
their plans yet, and those will definitely be shared with you.
Okay.
And you all are encouraged to, council's encouraged to
Okay.
join during
Thank you.
that day. I don't know how long they'll be. It might
That's
be a
okay.
quick walk. It may be a longer one, and lunch, I believe, will be part of that agenda. Oh, and one thing that did happen today is we had the official ribbon cutting for the Farmhouse Cafe and Creperie. They will be opened for dinner for their first time on Valentine's Day. So they indicated today at their ribbon cutting that they are, the reservations are going fast. So please dine locally. Check out the other restaurants as well. With that said, we have a motion, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session immediately following this meeting. Do I have a motion for a closed session? To go into closed session?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I move that we go into closed session, statutory, subject to statutory authority to close session, subsection 3-305B10-2, to discuss public security if the public body determines that the public discussion would constitute a risk to the public or to public security, including the development and implementation of emergency plans. Topic: Town Hall Council Safety Presentation.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk or Director Pitts, could I please have a roll call of those that are in favor or opposed to going into closed session?
Councilmember Trolinger,
In favor.
Councilwoman Bryant Ward,
In favor.
Councilman Jenkins,
In favor? Yes.
Mayor James.
Yes. All right, thank you for recording that. And with that, this meeting is officially adjourned at 7:26. Thank you for coming.